believe in yourself is something but you really have to, because you go through the emotional roller coaster. You wake up at 3 a.m. and you say, I got to get a paycheck going again. Like, what am I doing? I've got 2 boys in post-secondary and I got bills to pay and there's nothing coming in. So believing in my talent, reminding myself of, I have had some wins in the past. I've done some good things. But you certainly go through moments where you don't remember that fully. So I'd say the number one challenge has been to remind myself that I can do this, that I have a track record, and that I got to stick with this. And failure or giving up is not an option. I've burned the ships at the beach kind of thing. And again, I've had moments of terror, but by and large, it's been just awesome.
Welcome to the Leadership Launchpad Podcast, the Legacy Edition, where conscious leaders unite to unlock their highest potential so collectively we can change the way the game is being played. Welcome to the Leadership Launchpad Podcast, changing the way this game is being played. And we are back in studio, and Miss Tracy is back riding shotgun today. Tracy, how you feeling after your holiday?
Great. Well, it's Friday, so it's already been 5 days in. So it's just like, back on the saddle. So it's busy, but it's good. Good and refreshing. How about you?
Friday.
You were also away.
Friday for us, but Tuesday in podcast
That's
land.
right. That's right.
And we were just joking because I got my tan still, and Tracy not so much.
No, I was responsible.
You sure were. So we have the most exciting guest in with us. He's actually a really dear friend of Tracy's and myself, and he goes way back with Tracy. He actually worked with Tracy in his former years at Team Nokia. We have Chris O'Gorman of O'Gorman Consulting, which was founded with one thing in mind: strengthening leadership. Having worked in and consulted with a myriad of organizations in the past 25 years, Chris has learned that leadership is everything. You can see why we brought him in today, totally in alignment. And Chris says that it is his golden opportunity at this stage of his impact game to work with a select group of leaders and organizations that are interested in doing what it takes to build a culture of sustained performance while making a lasting impact on the world. You can see why we're so excited to introduce you to our friend Chris. Chris, welcome to the podcast. Finally, we got you in studio and we couldn't be more excited.
Well, thank you. And I'm very happy to be here in my first ever podcast. I've probably watched 5,000 of them, but this is my first time on one. So be gentle.
We promise not to be gentle for your first one. We're going to make sure that this is a real good experience for you. But why don't we get this party started by plugging our audience into a little bit of this backstory of yours in terms of what made you decide to become an entrepreneur at this stage of your impact game?
Well, I guess it boils down to having worked in organizations for really, I say 25 years, because I have 8 years of prior experience as a social services worker. So I guess I should count that as well. I'm sick of hearing myself say, one day I'm going to be self-employed, one day I'm going to be out there walking the talk, so to speak. And so finally, about a year ago, I went for a walk in the woods with my dog and had a long talk. And I came home and told my wife, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to finally take the plunge and try being self-employed. And so it's been 8 months, and it has been a journey, but a great one. And I've learned a lot. I've probably learned more in 8 months about business and about myself than maybe the last 10 years. So it's been scary and fun and exciting and hopeful and disappointing and a grind and awesome, because I literally have coffee or lunch or breakfast with a whole bunch of people that I really like and have not talked to in years. So it's been a great 8 months, and I've really cherished every moment of it.
I feel like I gotta ask, what has becoming an entrepreneur and stepping into leading your own business taught you about leadership?
and I'll apologize in advance if I use catchphrases that sound kind of trite, but believe in yourself is something that, you say that, but you really have to, because you go through the emotional roller coaster. You wake up at 3 a.m. and you say, I got to get a paycheck going again. Like, what am I doing? I've got two boys in post-secondary and I got bills to pay and there's nothing coming in. So believing in my talent, reminding myself of, I have had some wins in the past. I've done some good things. But you certainly go through moments where you don't remember that fully. So
Mm-hmm.
I'd say the number one challenge has been to remind myself that I can do this, that I have a track record, and that I got to stick with this. And failure or giving up is not an option. I've burned the ships at the beach, kind of thing. And again, I've had moments of terror, but by and large, it's been just awesome. Like, you have both, often in the same day, but it's been more hopeful, creative. I can do things my own way. I don't have to abide by any one company's kind of standard practices. I'm paid to bring innovative ideas and push, which totally is what I've always tried to do, but now I can do it because there's only one person in O'Gorman Consulting, and that's me.
I loved all the mindset in that answer, eh, Trace?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So maybe Chris, because I know you from a long time ago, and I've always seen you in that position of, coaching leadership. Because you remember when I used to come to your office and I'd say, "Okay, where's the couch? I need the couch. I need to lay down, and you need to solve my problems. Help me solve my problems." Maybe kind of plug the people into like what your backstory is a little bit in terms of what you've done. And because I believe what you've said at the beginning is a lot of your learnings through, and you and I are kind of aligned on the same mission in terms of changing the way the big corporate world is being played today, and Susan as well, right? But maybe tell us what you saw and why you're so passionate about helping people now in those big corporations, because you've seen a lot. I know
Mm.
you have, because we've worked together, and you know I know I was one of your people that you would help, and I know a lot of people that you were also helping. But maybe kind of like tell us, why you're so passionate about this and why you've made this a mission for you to help everybody else in terms of leadership and making the world a better place in terms of big corp. Because not even big corp, but just leadership in general. I think in big companies, like I do, those big companies have cultures, they have beliefs that they stand beside, and it's struggling for people. We all have our own kind of backstory, and then coming into these situations, we all react differently, and that's what you've been able to help calibrate for the people and keep them aligned. And so, curious on knowing what you've seen and what you've been able to experience, why this is such a passion for you now, without going into names and details, of course.
I will
Protect
keep
the
that.
innocent, Chris.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And there's so much I could say about Tracy Allen. But honestly, like, not to date things, Tracy, because I'll age us both. But when
Mm-hmm.
I started at Alcatel in
Mm-hmm.
2002, one of my jobs was to organize a process by which we identify top talent. They were big into talent segmentation at that time, where the thinking was, invest in the best, over invest in the best, and then the rest will follow, which is a debatable talent strategy, but still, I think, something that's predominant today. So I was asked to come up with a fair process to identify let's say, our top 5%. And a very young and green Tracy Allen was in that top 5%. So I've known you for probably longer than you've known me, honestly, because you were a name on a piece of paper to me before you were actually nominated to be part of these, high potential programs. But I'm digressing. So what really got me into this was, I graduated university in 91. My first job was social services. where I had a caseload of about 100 families who were collecting social assistance. And my job was to make sure that they got the right amount of money that they qualified for, which is not easy, to work with them as a quasi counselor, as a coach, as a life coach, to try and help determine what are the barriers in front of them that would help them, that they need to address to become employable. And there was always too many cases per social services worker. So I was inundated, thrown into like the deep end, session after session, where I'm coaching people with real problems, real challenges of all kinds, single moms, guys just getting out of jail, people in dire straits. You see people at their worst. So 8 years of that really honed my ability to coach. And I didn't know it at the time. I was just seeing people and doing my best to listen and try and empathize and come up with some kind of a solution. But it really sharpened my ability to be helpful in that way. And then I did a grad degree in something called Human Systems Intervention at Concordia. And that was a course that just changed my life because it really focused on why do people behave the way they do in groups and in organizations? And what are some of those predictable, inevitable phases that organizations go through, both when they're prospering or when they're struggling? And so I was able to kind of shift my career from social work into the business world and got to work with a whole bunch of great companies. I mean, the bulk of my career, 15 years, was at Alcatel/Alcatel-Lucent Nokia, but I also spent time at Mitel, at March, and then as a consultant off the side of my desk, moonlighting a whole host of leaders from a variety of organizations. So it's really, really been my passion to figure out what is it about the workplace that causes many people just to be frustrated and not really realizing their potential. Like you get all these smart MBAs together in company A, and then you get a similar profile in company B, and company A produces magic and wonderful things, and they have an amazing culture, and company B tries just as hard, has just the same amount of smart, driven people, but they flounder. And I was always like, why is that? What is it about that? Because it's not like one tries harder than the other. They both try and do everything that they can think of. But I think it comes down to a real understanding of the power of leadership in creating a culture versus a leadership component that creates fear and uncertainty and pits departments against each other inadvertently. Like I've very rarely run into somebody who didn't have great intentions, but it often comes down to self-awareness and leadership. So that's kind of my story and my journey thus far. And I feel like I'm just getting started. Like I have all this experience now, and now I'm working with different companies, different clients. So just trying to have some fun, trying to figure it out with different organizations.
I love this answer so much, Chris, because it really highlights, I asked you what becoming an entrepreneur was teaching you about leadership, and you immediately went to your self-leadership. You immediately went to the self-awareness you had to press on, right? To remind yourself of who you were and what you brought to this table and why you're so passionate about this mission. And then you're talking about company A versus company B, right? Having the same level of talent, but there being a marked difference in terms of their performance. And Tasha Eurich talks about how while 95% of us think we're highly self-aware, on average, only 10 to 12% of us actually are. What are your thoughts on this gap right about now? Because one of the things you and I were talking about off air, right, is just how conscious we need to be in leadership right about now, because the level of uncertainty that is so ripe, right? And only to accelerate, they're predicting into 2026 and beyond. So what are your thoughts in terms of why self-awareness continues in 2025? You're talking 2002 in that backstory.
Yeah.
This is more than 2 decades later. What are your thoughts in terms of why leaders still struggle to be self-aware so much in this modern world of leadership?
I know. I wish I had like a great throwaway, well, it's just this or it's that. I don't. But a couple of thoughts, because I think about this a lot and I see it a lot. I think power and power dynamics is not talked about enough. And that at the end of the day, whether we're willing to admit it to ourselves or anyone asking or not, people fear for their jobs, or people fear for their inability to move their career forward, let's say. So they start to laugh hard at the boss's jokes that aren't that funny. They start to put on a persona that really doesn't match who they are. They start to hold back or be overly agreeable. And a lot of that's rooted in fear and power dynamics. So I think that that is not talked about enough when we talk about self-awareness, because you see, again, really good people behaving in ways that are aligned with what they think the bosses need to or want to hear. But then when you go to the bar after work or the water cooler, you hear some of the disagreements that they have or some of the challenges that they're having, but that's not who's showing up in those meetings. And again, I have empathy, sympathy, and I've been there. Like I'm not sitting here saying, "Oh, I've never done that," or "I'm above." No, if you're in an organization, whether you're willing to admit it or not, you've fallen into that trap of being a little bit overly aligned with leadership for reasons of self-preservation or getting ahead. So that's one thing I think that really needs to be talked about more, both in coaching type conversations or just to reflect. And the other side of it is, I think that a lot of us are afraid to really go towards the self-awareness and give themselves a really accurate kind of self-feedback analysis of how was I in that meeting? How did I really come across? They'll sometimes get fooled into believing the head nods or believing the people in the room who are with you, but you're forgetting the fact that you're a vice president with their careers in your hand, and you choose to believe what you want to believe versus asking yourself the hard questions. So it's a real act of courage to go deep and to challenge yourself to be more self-aware. And oftentimes, they'll say, well, help me be more self-aware. Let's do a 360. And those are all good things. And I do them with some of my clients, but you need to do the heavy lifting yourself. You need to find a way, whether it's in the morning or the evening, to reflect, go for a walk, and ask yourself the hard questions versus trying to outsource that so quickly to somebody else. And that's, I think, a big challenge. And maybe it's exacerbated today with the advent of AI making everything faster, everything a little bit more frenetic, that we're not making or taking the time to really think and get the noise out of your head and ask yourself the hard questions about how am I coming across to my stakeholders? How am I really leading my team? Are they giving me the hard truths that they're experiencing that I may not want to hear? Am I inadvertently creating an environment where it's not okay to not agree with me? And it's all subtle. Like it drives me a little bit crazy when you see this stuff on LinkedIn and everything seems to be oversimplified. And use the word micromanagement. You see this come up over and over again, and all these cool little drawings and cartoons about micromanagement. And I've yet to have somebody admit to me that they're a micromanager. Yet it continues to be the number one complaint of employees in organizations around the world. And I find that interesting, but oversimplifying doesn't help, because you'll have the micromanagers look at that cartoon and say, well, that's not me.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all done in between the lines. It's very subtle. It's tone, it's culture. You feel it, but it's not like someone's pounding the table or literally looking over my shoulder. And like that oversimplification exacerbates the problem. I don't know if I'm on a rant there, but that's kind of my response to the self-awareness today. I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, am I off here? Or?
No, I wanted to ask, like, I think that's accurate. I think the other question I'm super curious, and I don't know if we have an answer to, but how many people actually care to be self-aware? Right? how many people actually want to do the work? I bet you that number is very small because I don't think people understand the value of it. And that's where I think we have to go in terms of helping people understand the value of really being self-aware, to be able to then change and make action plans to change that so that you can show up in the best way that you can to help your people. But I see companies moving really, really fast, leaders moving really, really quick. I don't even think they give a crap if people think they're shitty. I think they just think it's like we just gotta do shit and get stuff done.
Yeah.
And I don't think they put any value on the self-awareness. So that's like, and I know Susan talks about it a lot, like around the percentage of people that are self-aware, but how many want to be self-aware? I bet you that number is like little because that's the dirty work and that's like the ooh, uncomfortable. And I bet you most people don't even understand the value of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I always joke about how I wish they came whistling through my door upstream when,
Yeah.
when things were good, you know,
Yeah.
proactively. We always say a pound of prevention or an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? But no, no, it takes us the chokehold. It takes pain to catalyze that untapped potential, doesn't it, Chris?
It really does. And I don't know if well, I agree with you, Trace, that on the surface, they don't. I think everybody in their heart wants to or want to, but there's so much in the way. And the other side of this is like oftentimes people mistake me or you, Susan, and you, Tracy, in terms of your leadership as, oh, so you're saying that everybody needs to collaborate and get along and that I shouldn't reprimand or no, like I'm not saying be the nice, agreeable, sweetness and light, like far from it. Because good, effective leadership can often be really challenging. But if you're over relying on title, if you're relying on people's compliance and fear and just do it the way I say, then you're leaving so much on the table. And it's not like we're in a factory creating widgets where people's productivity is obvious. You've got, quote unquote, white collar leaders, white collar people making 100K plus a year. And you can't tell the difference between who's massively productive and who, because they're both typing away and look the same, but one's heart's in it and one's heart's not in it. And you're not getting anything close to what you're paying for those people who are beaten down by leaders who are just over relying on title and again, inadvertently, subtly creating an environment of compliance and fear versus really bringing all the ideas to the table. And again, it's not like I think everyone gets a vote and like there needs to be a balance. It's always a balance, right? And sometimes we're going to have to go along with ideas that we disagree with as part of being a team. But at least if I got to share my piece, and at least if I got to agreeably disagree and say, you know what, I want to go on record here and say, I think we should have gone with my idea, but I believe in you. I believe in this team so much that maybe I don't know what I don't know what I'm going to go and I'm going to give it all I got. It doesn't take, coddling and appeasing to get there. It really takes just some level of respect, which, is easy to shy away from, I guess, if you're a leader who doesn't, who maybe has these defensive or these fantasies about what could go wrong if you give everybody a vote, and they'll have an ironclad alibi for inaction by fantasizing all the negative repercussions of what they think I'm talking about versus what maybe we really need to guide them towards, which is listen, hear fully what other people's views are, respect everybody, and then move forward. And sometimes, yeah, you have to go in a direction that not everybody in the team agrees with, but it's a hell of a lot better than going through the motions. And you live with the results, right? And we've seen it, Tracy. In our company, we've seen so many things that could have been magnificent be not so because of these, again, well-meaning people. I want to emphasize, I'm not saying anyone's people mean well, but they're wired the way they're wired, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Really comes down to trust, right? And everything that we've been talking about today, even me just asking, what's different? And, what did you learn about leadership when you're starting your own business? And you went right into your self-awareness so that you could remind yourself as to why you should trust yourself, even though it's uncertain and unpredictable, to figure things out. And what we know to be true about micromanaging leaders is that they don't trust themselves. It comes from their insecurity, right? And this is why it is so important to not only step into that self leadership consciously so that you trust yourself, so you can lead in high trust, low fear ways, but ultimately, all of that self awareness, in terms of that stat only being 10 to 12% of us, is akin to engagement. Gallup says the average engagement right now, statistically, is only 23%, right? And so when we're talking about high performance, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. That's what we're talking about, is the benefit of being highly self-aware and thus secure in your leadership, right? Is then you can actually cultivate those high performance teams in those locker rooms, because you're actually then rippling that trust and that respect, you called it, right, out into your people's experience.
Mhm.
But again, it's just something that we don't slow down enough to actually be able to understand about ourselves. And this is why Tracy and I are so passionate about talking about conscious leadership right now. Because add a little acceleration of uncertainty into the formula here in 2026. And if you're not trusting yourself, that need to power over and micromanage and control is only going to go up, right? And what is that going to do to the engagement on your teams and thus the performance? Where do you think this is going to shake out, sir? In terms of, are we going to go left or are we going to go right? Is this going to be the pain that catalyzes that self-awareness, that trust, that engagement for the purposes of high performance?
That's a great question. And I tend not to think in terms of extremes as much as maybe I used to. I think that even in this, maybe, I always think about the pendulum. The pendulum swings both ways. And, in my career, I joined high tech just at the end of the bubble growing, and then the bubble burst.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was 2008 financial crisis, and then there was the COVID, right? And now there's AI. Those are the four biggies in my career, I think, in terms of just world events that have shaped organizations and pushed them to the limit and killed some and founded others. So I don't know where it's going, but I think that regardless, there's leaders and teams out there as we speak doing amazing things who do get the fact that they've got trust as a currency that needs to be first and foremost, and they're building great products. They're doing and this, in spite of headwinds, they're crushing it, and lots aren't. And I think it often comes down to like scanning the ecosystem and understanding where is our organization at this point in time, not overreacting to the myriad of headlines and things that can just trigger you, and continuously driving that leadership self-awareness to the team, to have honest conversations, to have hard conversations, to possibly kill something that we've been working on, because rather than spending good money after bad, those require thought and confidence that are all rooted in self-awareness and ideally organizational awareness. So I would say, to answer your question, Susan, I think that there are, and there continue to be, organizations, quote unquote, that get it, and teams inside big organizations that get it and are crushing it. And lots aren't, because to your point about conscious leadership, there becomes an unconsciousness to the way they start to act, because they're just trying to keep up. They're just trying to seem like they're, in line with the AI strategy or whatever, and they're not thinking. And things start to crumble, and it becomes a death spiral. So I think you're very, very wise to have conscious leadership and the conversations that you and Tracy have been having and driving as a big part of your practice, because I think it's spot on to what's needed today. And I think that people would be wise to listen to some of your stuff, because you're hitting it. You're both really hitting it in a meaningful way. without coming across as preachy or patronizing. Like you're creating that pull that I think is needed. Uh, yeah.
Thank you, sir. That really means the world to us, right, Trace? To hear from Chris himself, he totally sees it like we see it. Yeah, well, this is why we're trying to get this out from the rooftops as far and wide as we can right about now to tap on the consciousness in modern day leadership because we don't even know what it's going to look like for you in a year's time if you don't. Like, there's never been a more important time to step to this home consciously so that you can actually lead from the executive, not the toddler, right? In terms of, because this is what we know, disruption, it triggers uncertainty, and uncertainty triggers the stress response, right? In terms of our amygdalas. And when that happens, we're not making conscious decisions. We're leading ourselves in very primal ways, like micromanaging, like we talked about today. Any final thoughts or words of inspiration for all our conscious leaders who are tuning in, who are cranking up the high beams in their self-awareness right now in regards to, yeah, just how to really prepare to actually play their biggest impact game in 2026 and beyond?
Well, I guess my final thought is the advice that I'm trying to live myself, which is every day, I'm a morning person now, more than I used to be. So I gotta spend time with a blank piece of paper and ask myself, what does success look like for me today? All those hard questions. What do I want to focus on? What are some of my distractions that I need to avoid? What do I need to do to get myself in the headspace that I need to be in to have a good day? And who are the people that I'm connecting with? Where might their heads be at? Uh, Try and get into their headspace a little bit so I'm not projecting my own stuff on them, and try and be as conscious and as intentional as I can. And then when I inevitably go off the rails early afternoon or start to, something will happen that will deviate me from my plan that I hatched at 6:30 in the morning, to find that way to get myself back in that headspace. And to have mercy on myself when I blow it, because I do. But that's simple practice. That's my practice. Everyone's got their own thing. Some people meditate, walk, whatever. So pick your thing. But you can't say that you're too busy to spend 15 minutes to kind of get your shit together about what does success look like for me today, and ask those hard questions. That's what drives self-awareness. That's what drives conscious leadership. And it's boring, and it's every single day waiting for you. And when you don't do it, when I don't do it, it has an impact. So that's my coaching to myself, as much as what I often talk about with people that I'm trying to be helpful for.
I love it. Motivation will get you going, but consistency keeps you growing, right? I think Jim Rohn said that. Tracy, any final words of inspiration for our folks before we let Chris go today?
Well, I think I am really, really excited, and I'm so grateful, Chris, that you came on here being such a great coach for me in my younger years, and still a great friend and a coach still today. So I am super grateful you made the time to come here. And I know that you've shared so much with our people around self-awareness and about what you're doing and your experience, that I know that that will get people thinking, and hopefully we get more people into the self-awareness arena where we can actually get curious about how important that is and how it can change the way that we lead people, right? And how we have such an impact on people when we actually understand how we're showing up. So thank you for helping us spread that ripple effect and help us get our people in there to get going and growing. So thank you for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. Boy, like I said, I was honored, surprised, humbled to be asked for my first ever podcast. I hope I didn't go on and on, or lose you
You're
too much.
wonderful.
But I really, right back at you. I love working with you, Tracy. You know that, and Susan. Well, thank you, Tracy, for introducing me to Susan, because I've learned a lot. And yeah, you guys have a great thing going. So thanks for having me.
The pleasure and honor was all ours, sir. And I know there's going to be lots of folks listening right now who want to crank the high beams in their self-awareness with you. So if they are looking to find you and have a conversation with you, I think you said the best places for them to reach out would be Chris O'Gorman on LinkedIn or o'gormanconsulting.com as well. We will place all that information in the show notes. For those of you listening in here today, thank you. We are in the year of co-creation and we want to hear from you. We want to hear if this is hitting the mark, if we got our finger on the right pulse, and if there's anything else that we might be missing in our conscious leadership discussions. We're 1 month out from 2026. Oh, I can't believe that I'm saying that. But yeah, Tracy and I want to make sure that we do justice to anything that is coming up contextually on your side of things. So please send me an email directly, Susan@elitehighperformance.com. Y'all know how much I love hearing from you. And for all other inquiries or curiosities in and around conscious leadership or anything else that we talked about here today, you can head on over to our website as well, elitehighperformance.com. Please share this episode with a friend, with a colleague, with a leader, with your teams. We're trying to spread this ripple effect as far and wide as we can when the world needs conscious leadership more than ever. In our humble opinion, we know that this is the future of leadership development and training. So help us change the way this game is being played. That's it. That's all for today. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you all next week.